This is delightful. I'm so glad we came here. Feel those vibrations at Camp Video Games.
Oh, howdy ho there, campers, denizens, citizens of Camp Video Games.
Camp Video Games.
It's me, Junior Counselor Josh. Here, we're about to talk about Breath of the Wild. And who am I joined by? But Junior Counselor Sean. What's going on?
Junior Counselor me.
Yes. All right. That was a lovely,
You did it. Dude.
lovely, thorough introduction by both of us. I tried introducing things for the first time today because I want to steal something from one of my all-time favorite podcasts, Reply All. They do a segment called Yes, Yes, No. And there's a wonderful Yes, Yes, No that came up on the internet yesterday, but the day before we record this, that is extremely Zelda related. So Yes, Yes, No is a segment where like something in internet culture happens. One host has a pretty thorough understanding of why it's like an interesting thing once you understand the context.
In this case, that's you.
In this case, that's me. I'm gonna read it. It's just some like a tweet and some replies, and then I'm gonna see if I can make Junior Counselor Sean understand what the hell's going on with this. So this is a tweet by at Reggie. Okay,
He's got just the straight up handle
just at Reggie.
Good for him.
Real Nintendo heads know what that means already. Real Nintendo heads already know where I'm going. Okay. And the tweet is, in quotes, I don't know what you want. What I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. And it's quote tweeting a now deleted tweet. Do you understand anything that's happening yet?
He's quoting Liam Neeson from Taken.
Yes.
Reggie is Reggie Fils-Aimé, or is that his last name?
Yeah, Reggie Fils-Aimé, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Well, if it's French, I think the S is silent, but je ne sais pas, as they say. Okay, and he's the current CEO, or no, what is that guy?
Retired president and COO of Nintendo America.
All right, because like something Doug Bowser is in charge of
now,
Nintendo these days.
Too weird, man.
Okay, so the former Nintendo COO is quoting Liam Neeson from Taken, and so far that's cryptic as hell, and I don't know where that's going.
Okay. Because he's quote tweeting a now deleted tweet. This was on May 3rd at 3:27 p.m. and I was following this in real time, and he replies to his own tweet saying visual of original tweet. And what he was quote tweeting is a picture somebody took from just a rando on Twitter. Just some random person, and I was able to see their profile before they went underground and deleted this tweet. And from what I could tell, it was legitimately just a common 16-year-old. Because like the way I follow Twitter is most of what I follow is like video game Twitter and weird Twitter, which is just people just being weird and making jokes.
Oh, I'm sure there's no crossover in those two sections.
And there's a little bit of crossover. So it could have been like somebody's goofing with what I'm going to describe here. The picture is of their Switch home screen, and the Tears of the Kingdom logo is up, and it says they're actively playing it on May 3rd, a week and a half before it comes out.
Right. And for the listeners' benefit, we have recorded these ahead of time from their release just so that we are not going to lose our minds.
Okay. How much more is it making sense to you now?
Okay, so they're threatening to kill a teenager for supposedly playing a leak of the as of now unreleased Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
So the former guy in charge of Nintendo is like okay. I saw that image because I follow you on social media, and
I shared this around a little bit.
So that's the only reason I saw it. That is, I know that certain content creators have been given like teaser release, like gameplay. How do you say demos of the game just to continue to build up the hype train.
Right.
Because as of now, we're about a week away from the release of the game, which is just bonkers in terms of what I think that's a big reason that we've been recording a podcast about Breath of the Wild is because we have the opportunity to talk about this game without being completely bum rushed by all of the new information that Tears of the Kingdom is going to unload on us. So this is almost for like our benefit to like be working on this game critically as we are prior to the sequel, because that could really tarnish or change the way that we look at the game.
Yeah, and a lot of people in like games Twitter and games internet are kind of doing not as deeply and thoroughly as us, but I've noticed there's a lot of people sort of posting about like, I'm playing Breath of the Wild right now because Tears of the Kingdom's coming out.
So should we talk to our lawyers, or what are you saying that like we're
that's where the rest of this leads.
Oh, cool.
Because the history of this tweet, the reason beyond the former president of Nintendo of America threatening to murder a child,
which is awesome,
who deleted their tweet within 30 minutes of this threat, led me. I was like, did Reggie have this kid drone strikes?
I hope so.
I don't know, because
I hate pirates, man.
Yeah, well, Nintendo is a famously litigious company when it comes to their intellectual property.
Absolutely.
So they've done like takedowns of there was an issue with people using like Nintendo Music on YouTube that they went after.
That's right. And anyone using gameplay footage in a non-critical way, if you're not doing it as a review, then they consider that copyright infringement.
There was that. And I looked up a few other instances. They went after a channel called Did You Know Gaming.
Yeah.
They do like...
Did you know?
If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's like they present it like a legitimate like TV show. It's presented like the same tone as like Unwrapped. If
that's a
you've
good way
seen
of putting
that
it.
show.
Yeah, I love Did You Know Gaming.
Yeah,
it's very soothing. I like to wash my dishes while I listen to it.
They're like very serious like video game historians, and they got attacked for doing a segment that featured like lost footage from an unreleased Zelda game.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And they got stricken down for that. And the issue that comes up then is that Nintendo is like deleting or like restricting the ability to like cover history in a way.
This is a big talking point with the merits of emulation, where there are certain games that cannot be played anymore without use of emulators and ROMs. Gaming is an art form that is relatively new to like human consciousness. You can't really like put a copyright on chess anymore because it's like, public domain in such an ancient game. But like also you think about old video games that were only available on disc-based system, which has a limited life, and without a digital backup, those just become completely lost. And then like, history is only as thorough as the records. And if we have no records of it, then it's, impossible to have a full picture of what how they've developed over the years.
Yeah. And, on top of that, Nintendo shuts down its own virtual stores so that even if you've purchased a game and you didn't save your digital download of it, gone. Sorry, we deleted the server. It's no longer available. Your game is gone.
That's right. Just recently, Nintendo shut down the Wii U shop and the 3DS shop. And as soon as that happened, there was like a tidal wave of videos on how to jailbreak your 3DS and how to like, and how to make it, a more comprehensive library of gaming available.
Well, go download those videos while you can before Nintendo has them stricken from YouTube. Because another example from just the last week that I found was they pulled somebody just demoing a mod of Breath of the Wild that they had run. I didn't see exactly what the mod was, but I've seen a lot of mod videos, so I don't know how they singled somebody out for this.
Yeah,
there's a lot of fun like Breath of the Wild mods where people are trying to like up the challenge level by like modding out, like, oh, let's make super strong Lionel fights, and things like that. They're pretty cool. And Nintendo's not having it. And I think of it as like, I think of it as the same as like sampling and rap music, which I'm not wild about that either, like where you have to license it and pay the person forever. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Creative Commons licensing, where it's like, hey man, if you're doing your own new thing with it and it's like not just like you're trying to sell the exact thing that I made, cool. Like, I don't know. I wish the world operated more that way.
I don't remember the band. Maybe it was the Meters, but the famous Amen break that's been sampled. That basically was like birthed the genre of like drum and bass, and it was like sampled in early hip hop. It's a very classic, iconic 6-second loop that you've heard it if you've ever listened to the radio. Basically, it's one of those like samples. You think about if that drummer made like a penny on every song that used his loop, he would be richer than Jeff Bezos.
It's the Amen break comes from a song Amen Brother by a soul group called the Winstons. The Meters was not a bad guess though. Yeah, I'm of the mind of who am I thinking of? Oh my god, I'm blanking his name. The Chicago music producer who did all the Nirvana stuff. Oh my gosh. I'm blanking his name. I should go fix it later. Anyway, his thing is like you're paying me for my time. So like he makes all these like hugely famous records. And he is like, you paid me hourly for my time? I'm good. And I think my cat just destroyed my $3,000 computer.
Do you want to pause?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's handle that.
And we're back, folks.
Campers, we experienced a devastating loss today. I would like everyone to just bow their heads in silence and give a moment of reflection on the long and tragically short life Josh's laptop screen.
Yeah. So I don't know how much of I don't know where we're gonna cut here.
If you'd like to hear the full ordeal as it unfolded, you could subscribe to our Patreon for $5 a month. You'll get full gameplay commentary. You'll get episode by episode commentary, and you'll get to hear Josh realize that his cat just destroyed his laptop. And how quickly, props to you, Josh, how quickly you managed to overcome this adversity with a cool composure. You get a camp video game gold star.
Yeah. You know, that's it, because the variable is the cost. I mean, I know it's going to be annoying. I'm going to have to go to the shop, drop the dang thing off. Bare minimum. That's annoying. Whatever. That's life. It happens. It might cost $0. It might cost $200. It might cost $500. It might cost $1,000. I don't know. That's for future Josh to worry about. The important thing is, in the interlude of me figuring out how to get the display that we needed to monitor what we're recording onto the TV so we can continue recording, I remembered Steve Albini's name, which is where we left off.
The producer of the Nirvana
Chicago-based producer.
Yes.
Who's
he's all about the hour. Like he's like a gig. He's a gig guy. He likes to get paid for the gig, and he doesn't care.
For my labor. I'm not owed this eternal royalty of intellectual property that I had a hand in, and that's very much my philosophy around. Now, who knows if that would change if I made something people wanted to use.
Right.
I'd like to think,
The only time I've ever been like faced with that kind of question is I wrote a review of the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre Netflix feature that came out last year, and it got picked up and reprinted in a sister paper, and I got paid for that.
Nice.
And I would always want to get paid for that because they're getting use out of something with my work in it. And even if I only got paid for the one time, if it was only appearing in publication for the time I got paid, I wouldn't feel like I was getting ripped off.
Yeah.
But if another publication is doing it, then I feel entitled to that money.
Yeah. Well, let's not belabor the point. Let's get into what we played in Breath of the Wild today. That was yes, yes, no, and a cat destroying a $3,000 laptop.
The cat said no. The cat said no.
Said absolutely not. We're not doing that.
Campers, we're covering Breath of the Wild today. We are going to discuss Link's adventure with Rito Village and his daring recapture of Va Meadow, the gigantic flying bird.
Right. And we left off Why are their names so...
Vanaboris.
Vanuboris.
So at this point, Vanaboris is standing on Spectacle Rock, aiming its big laser pointer at Ganon at Hyrule Castle. So last episode we talked about Breath of the Wild. I mentioned that I thought Spectacle Rock was kind of an anomaly because it was such a big blank space, but now I realize why it was designed that way, so that we could have a gigantic mecha standing on it.
Yeah. Sorry. You can go ahead and begin to walk us through this. I've got to sort of realign how I'm covering today because I'm down a screen.
Yeah. Well, so after okay, so Vanaboris, we free Urbosa's spirit, and so upon calming Vanaboris, it's only proper to return to Riju at Gerudo Village, and she gives Link the Scimitar of the Seven, a sword, and the Daybreaker shield. So the Scimitar of the Seven, I think that's a reference to the Seven Sages that are featured in the gigantic statues that we didn't mention last time.
I would say, we're probably not going to cover that, but they are.
It's an amazing
in a side quest.
An amazing landmark on Hyrule's map. It's 7 massive statues, swords in hand. They're all maidens. Kind of remind me of like Lady Justice, Joan of Arc. You think about women with swords, really, is all that I'm kind of going at here. And there's a lot of Arthurian legend kind of mixed in with the Legend of Zelda. With the sword, the Master Sword being in the stone and like the Triforce being kind of analogous with the Holy Grail to some degree. But at one point in Arthurian legend, Arthur breaks Excalibur and he throws the sword into a lake. And it gets reforged, and a lady in the lake emerges with a sword in hand. And I'm specifically reflecting on John Borman's amazing early 80s high fantasy movie, Excalibur, which I supremely recommend. Anyone who loves sword and sorcery fantasy, anything with, knights and shining armor. It's a beautiful work of art of a film. It's one of those movies that I could not imagine it being made today without being completely ruined with CGI, but everything is practical. John Borman's Excalibur. These Titan statues, the 7 sages. The only thing I want to mention about that before we move on from the Gerudo Desert is there's an 8th sage statue that you can find in the Gerudo Highlands. It seems like the way the statues down in the desert are situated, there's a vacancy where an 8th statue could fit, and the kind of between the lines storytelling implies that this statue was ejected from that spot and flew like miles away into the Gerudo Highlands. You'll find the 8th sage's sword. It's like identical to the other 7, which is interesting. That it's almost like, is this a kind of like Gerudo revisionary history? Like they're trying to erase the records of the 8th sage, perhaps something controversial in that goes against these highly ancient legends that have been passed down that might negate something,
and that we have possibly as players played and know the canonical history of, which is which leads to the question of like, who would that 8th have been?
Exactly. I mean, in previous games we've seen the 7 sages we've got the 7 maidens in A Link to the Past that you have to rescue them from the dungeons and to get their medallions, I believe.
They're in crystals or something.
I believe
free them from crystals.
I believe that's right. Yeah. And then in Ocarina of Time, the sages are the characters that you meet along the way. You've got Saria, Ruto. Oh, geez, I'm trying to list them all now. Darunia. Sheik. Wait, is Sheik a sage? I don't know if Zelda counts as
not Sheik. The caretaker. Is it Impa?
Is Impa a sage? Oh man, we're in a Zelda podcast.
We should not dive into a Zelda game we have not been playing.
I just shot myself in the foot by trying to list them instead of just mentioning them in passing, which is what we're actually doing.
That one, like the Gerudo you meet randomly at the end of the game, turns out to be a sage.
Yes.
Anyway.
Oh man. Now they know we don't know everything about video games.
Oh, God forbid.
Campers, we might be enthusiastic, but we do not have a comprehensive memory of everything.
I've got other things to do. I've had sex.
I've replaced all my gaming memories with sexual memories. So I think of this talk of like the sages all being depicted as women. It's pretty typical of like a matriarchal like deity based system, right? Where like
I think of like the oracles of Delphi.
I don't know what that is.
They were was it Athenian or Spartan? But yeah, it was ancient Greece where they were oracles that like could induce you into like visions of whatever. So people go, and I believe they were all women, and they'd seek out their advice. But the theory is that the space where they would hold ritual or whatever, and people would come, had like a gas leak.
So they're just tripping balls.
So people were just tripping balls.
Hell yeah! I was gonna say, I was like, oh, it just sounds like that cool like witchy house of like goth chicks that sells mushrooms.
Yeah, I want to go there.
Yeah, me too. A bunch of hot goth Zeldas. Call that a callback. All this talk of like witchy women and like sages and goddesses makes me kind of go back to the blood moon, thinking about that. I wonder like I wonder if its resurgence coincides with Link's resurrection as well. We've talked a little bit about like the practicality of these villages trying to fight off moblins and goblins and all of the enemies that resurrect every time the blood moon cycles. Seems like Link coming back to life as it is like kind of like screwed up a lot for people by the towers going up and like the Yiga clan becoming active again.
Yeah, I mean, you quite literally have people stuck on towers because they're like,
right.
I was just standing here. And this thing shot me up 200 feet in the air.
There's that Zora that you meet that he's like, oh. Blood Moon though is just it makes me wonder if there is a analog for the Blood Moon be the same for the non-malice infected, like for the people of Hyrule. Like we're gonna go back to like Skyward Sword lore when the demon Demise kind of created the essence of Ganon by like swearing vengeance upon the ancestors of the hero and the goddess reborn. Like Blood Moon is kind of the same thing. Like every generation Link is reborn, Zelda is reborn as it is. There's always going to be a hero. There's always going to be the goddess reincarnated. And the Blood Moon, what it does, it seems to like keep up the powers of evil as it is alongside that. It's just every time the Blood Moon happens, every like 3 hours or whatever it is, makes me think about it in different ways. Just it's taken for granted in a lot of ways. Like it's from a gameplay perspective, it's like, oh, cool. Now there's some more treasure that's like,
there's restocked my resources that I need to gather.
Yeah, there's a Stalfos Hinox. I forget if it's just called a Stalnox or it's a big skeleton with one eyeball in the Gerudo Desert, and you can defeat him and get a Thunder Greatsword. So like every time there's a Blood Moon, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna go back there and get another one because it's a sweet sword. I love Thunder swords just because they like tend to like incapacitate your enemies, or if they're holding weapons, they'll drop them. Makes combat kind of easy in that way.
Right.
So Blood Moon, yeah, blah blah blah. See the 8th statue up in the Gerudo Highlands where it's like foggy, snowy, and all. This is I got to fight a snow Lionel there. That's a cool like enemy variation.
Oh, so you really went up there.
Yeah.
I got one shrine and I was kind of out of there. I haven't really explored this. I'm so off my game by not being able to like look at my map. I think I'm gonna have to, I won't be able to show anybody who's like watching the video version. I can't stream into the fire like I normally would, but I need like I need my visual notes of being able to look at my map to think about, remind myself.
Yeah, you want to grab your Switch just to have it as a reference?
Yeah.
Well, the snow Lionel is a like it's just a different color palette compared to the other Lionels that we fought at this point, which I assume like if you're playing like I am, where you're basically going from one objective to the next on like the big adventure log bullet points, you've probably only fought like the first level of Lionel, and as the game progresses, their colors change, and that denotes them being more or less powerful as a result. And the Snow Lionel is a more powerful one, and I don't know, just it's like a lot of blue and white and purple colors. Makes it seem that much more like intimidating to me. So from Riju, we go and we tell her that we've calmed Vondaboris, right? She gives us the sword. And I don't think we've mentioned this with the other divine beasts that we've conquered, is that every time you do that and you report back to the chieftain of the tribe that you've saved, they'll give you like a heirloom weapon that's been passed down from generations. When we care of Ruda, we got the light scale trident,
right?
And
which you need for a shrine quest, and I used it for that, and then I was like, peace out.
Yeah,
taking up inventory.
It's a little underpowered, but the cool thing is that it's a weapon that you can get repaired, and it's one of those like if you like to have the full complete collection of like champions weapons, it's there. And yeah, from Riju we get the Scimitar of the Seven. It's a fine enough sword.
Do you get two? You get the shield.
Daybreaker shield.
Yeah, I still have the Daybreaker shield in my
and that's a good shield. I really mostly just use shields for surfing in the game. I always thought it's so funny that like later on as we get to like Hyrule Castle and you can get the Hylian shield, which I think is one of the most dependable shields in the game. Like I just keep surfing on it, and it's just like
it's just the ultimate surfboard.
Yeah,
that's what it's there for.
Yeah. Link, I could see Link having like just like a Pauly Shore kind of voice, like "What's going on, Zelda? Catch some waves." There. So it's cool. Everything in the desert is kind of taken care of. The only other like notable marks in the desert would be the Leviathan bones that you'll find out there, big dragon skeleton. And a mini boss that you can come across in the desert called, I believe it's the Molduga, which is like, if you've seen the movie Tremors, it's playing by those rules. It's a big underwater shark kind of beast but under sand, I guess. It travels underground and it hears your footsteps and it'll attack you there. It's a fun kind of, it mixes up the variety in the combat a little bit.
Definitely like the most mechanically challenging of like mini bosses that you do have to kind of solve it, whereas the other one's like you can tag them head on as long as you're strong enough, you got it. But the Moldugas, you have to either like outrun it, and then like I haven't fought any of this playthrough, so I don't remember exactly, but I know the best way to do it is like you throw a bomb, attract it with the noise of the bomb, then it comes up and then you go after it.
I think a good tactic is to do as you said, where you throw bait out and it'll hear the sound and it'll go and attack that space where you threw it. And then what a lot of people do is they'll get to a high ground and they'll jump off of it as the Molduga surfaces. And when you equip your bow in mid jump, you'll go into a slow-mo bullet time. And then at that point, if you've got a good, maybe like a Lionel bow that shoots 3 arrows at a time, you just like spam it with bomb arrows. And that's probably one of the quicker ways to defeat them. From there, we're going to head to Bantha Tower on our way to Rito Village, which is our next destination. To Bantha Tower, this is, at this point, all the towers have little mini puzzles in order to ascend them. And this one is covered with malice infestation. And basically, if you shoot one of the eyes of malice, it will. What happens in gameplay when you shoot an eye of malice, which is just a big evil looking eyeball with an orange pupil, all of its cluster of cancerous tissue will evaporate. And when you shoot this one at Tabantha Tower, it dislodges a column, which makes it fall into the tower, which is a cool, that kind of physics work is not used enough in Breath of the Wild. And I really like it when that does happen that way, where you get to, you can shoot something and then change the architecture as it is, which is a cool.
I want to back up a little bit to sort of like assume a traveler's taking the path of least resistance into the sort of Rito region, the Tabantha region of the game. This is one of the biggest wow factors I've had playing this game. Is I believe I went to whatever the other nearest tower, the Ridgeland Tower. It's kind of like the region next to the Tabantha region, and then just followed the road from there.
Oh, sure.
And you're kind of like steadily heading uphill. For the viewers, I'd love to show you, but sorry, cat ate the screen, so I can't do that right now. But you hit the Tabantha Bridge stable, and there's a Tabantha Bridge. Okay.
Oh yeah. You had something to say about this.
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts about how this occurred to me this playthrough. Because you're going uphill as you approach the Tabantha region, as I mentioned. When you start crossing this bridge, if you're looking around, and I was riding a horse, which is rare for me because they're just not super convenient, as I've mentioned in the past. But it was like the right time of day that I pan my camera, and you get like basically it's like a book unfolding, and like revealing the region to you. All the landmarkers you can see. The tower that you were just discussing, you see the rock structures that form the Rito village, and you see Va Meadow in the distance. And as I was streaming it, I was comparing it to what we in Cincinnati have called the Cut in the Hill.
Yeah, why don't you describe that?
So people are very impressed. If you approach the city of Cincinnati southbound, you're heading downhill instead of uphill like this. But you'll take a turn on the highway where all of a sudden this same thing happens, is like these mountain or hill ridges separate, and you get this like stunning view of downtown. Like the city opens up and reveals itself to you. And the environmental design of this game does it here, this moment, that you're like, oh my gosh, look at all these new things to explore, which I think is like the strongest part of this section of the game is the environmental design.
Yeah.
We'll go on. I'm not super in love with the Rito. I dislike the Rito people. I just don't think like their scenario is very like in depth compared to the rest of the game.
Sure.
Which we'll get into in a bit. But like, then like you continue on and you have to like dodge some. If you're continuing on the path, you got to dodge some those floating guardians.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the drones, as they were.
Yeah. And then when you get to the tower, I start climbing the tower, and the same experience happens again. If you're just keeping your eyes peeled, you go, oh my gosh, there's a shrine right there. Oh my gosh, there's a glowing fairy fountain over there.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, look at, this is the route to take to the village, and it's got another glowing shrine. And it's just like, this is the brilliance of the design of this game. This is the environment.
Oh, yeah.
And the way it opens itself up to you is just, it's so good. And what I was getting at earlier, like the time of day you approach things can like impact the beauty of the moment.
Sure.
Like it was just like when I first came over that bridge that I was comparing to our Cut in the Hill, it was like the sun was setting over like everything, and I literally gasped in my gameplay.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, what is this? What am I playing right now?
It's almost 7-year-old game at this point.
Yeah, it's incredible. So that was all to lead us up there. Yeah, there's like a couple of there's just more stables than I remembered, kind of leading you into the Rito Tabantha region. So yeah, where we were with the Malice and climbing the tower is kind of where I jumped in.
Yeah. Well, from that tower, the first thing I noticed was the Great Fairy Fountain that you mentioned, and that's where her name's Kesa, almost queso, and that I could go for some cheese right now.
Yeah. I didn't get the fairy's name because that was my last fairy to unlock, and it was 10,000 rupees, which I was nowhere close to.
Right. So every great fairy that you find, I guess it doesn't matter what order, because I only had to pay, I think, 500 rupees. She's only the second one that I found. I don't remember specifically how much she asked for, but it was way less than you.
Yeah.
But as you find the great fairies, they're able to improve your armor sets in different degrees, which is very helpful. All you need is some resources and rupees.
And after I just glowed about the wonders of this game, now I want to make a little tiny critique around this fairy fountain.
Careful.
So,
Nintendo will come after you if you talk
I know.
too
Listen up,
critically.
Reggie. I got a problem with your game. So at the Tabantha Bridge stable, there's a guy who's like, I really want to see a fairy. And he gives you the side quest to find that fairy fountain.
Okay.
The side quest starts with him giving you 500 rupees.
Oh, that's convenient.
You could just run off with them and never come back.
Sure.
And that's it. I don't even know what the prize is if you do go see the fairy and come back to see.
Because you just took this guy's money?
Yeah, because I just took his money. And I couldn't afford to get the fairy out of the fountain. And that raises the critique of the game, which I've probably brought up before, of the side quest design is kind of overlooked. I was comparing it to, like, the peak side quest is, we've talked about before, like Witcher 3.
Yeah. Where you think it's the main quest and you only find out later that it's a side quest.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
Cyberpunk, also by CD Projekt Red. Not quite as well done as Witcher 3, but still of that sort of quality where, like, you can make choices where you miss whole big things. This is like sub World of Warcraft. This is like
where
World of
it's
Warcraft.
A person is like, I need a thing. Can you go to place?
Exactly. Like World of Warcraft is nothing but that. But then you always know when I come back, I'm going to get a much bigger chunk of experience than if I had spent that time just farming mobs.
Sure.
That's the way World of Warcraft worked, at least back in my day when I played it. Whereas this, the most recent example is, we'll get to the Rito flight range in a bit.
Yep.
I did the quest of, like, just do the best job you can, shoot down all these targets. I shot them all. I missed a few arrows, and then the reward, I think, was like 100 rupees. I was like, okay, well, I just spent 300 rupees worth of arrows shooting all of these targets. Thanks.
Got to spend money to make money.
Yeah, that's the nature of side quests in Breath of the Wild. They're just, like, not really strategically thought through of, like, risk versus reward and return on investment of your time.
Yeah, I think, especially with this most recent playthrough for me, if I've done a side quest, it's only because I knew the outcome would be very quick and worth it to any point, but pretty minimal.
Yeah.
I can get a very full gaming experience without resorting to side quests.
Yeah, and I think they're fine for, like, completionists, because you do get a little local color usually from interacting with the people. And that part is done better than World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft, you're like, click through the flavor text, get it out of my way, just give me the experience.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, the characters are engaging when you interact with them.
Sure,
in the
and
quest, usually
a lot of charisma in the characters that you meet, and if that brings you joy, then this game has plenty of it for you.
Yeah.
And if you'd rather overlook it, that is completely doable as well. You're not going to miss out on key information or any, like, must experience, like, side quests, or I mean, with the Korok seeds being, like, the ultimate time filler side quest, their payoff is that you get more weapons, but when it really is just for completionists. Like, practically speaking, the amount of Korok seeds that you'll find organically will give you a large enough inventory to be able to competently defeat Ganon at the end. Calamity Ganon. So, yeah, Camp Video Game says, do them if you like them, but don't worry about side quests.
play your way. Have fun. Don't let me bring you down. Don't let me yuck your yum.
Nintendo don't let me. So from the tower, I glided down to the Great Fairy, and she did a little bit. I just actually in the last week I finally got the Champion's Tunic. I just like made it a point to go back to Kakariko Village, and tell people that I figured out a memory. But then I warped back to the tower and then glided from there to the entryway to Rito Village.
Interesting. I continued on just directly through the path because this again was one of the few times I was on a horse pretty much the whole time. So when you hit the they don't name their bridge, but when you
call
pass,
it Rito Bridge.
Yeah, you pass the Rito stable and you hit the bridge in. That's when you start to encounter what I'm just gonna call like the Rito scenario around their divine beast.
Sure. You see a bird go.
Yeah, you get a big bird caw. Like right when you start walking across the bridge. So if you glided in, where did it?
No. As I said, I went to the entrance, which I count those bridges as a part of the entrance.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and so to like describe Rito Village, it's a cluster of islands, very tall islands, connected by bridges, and those bridges are likely built for the benefit of Hylians and other visiting races, because this is a town populated by giant bird people.
Yeah, as we will find, some of them are very proud of their ability to fly and our inability to fly.
Sure. So kind of like Gerudo Town, Rito Village has a large stone at its center.
Right.
Whereas in Gerudo Town, it's the three rocks that to my eyes resemble the Triforce, and then there's a waterfall flowing from it. And in Rito Village, it's like a gigantic perch. To me, it kind of looked like a golf ball on a tee, but that's at the tallest point in Rito Village, and it's just kind of like as Link is ascending it, he's just kind of like going up little walkie ways and
absolutely in love again with the environmental design.
Yeah, looks
of
great.
This space. Everything is perfection. Again, the scenario of like what's going on with Rito Village is less like what's the word I'm looking for? It's less enticing than what's going on where we've been.
You think it's like the danger is not as like imminent to its people?
Yeah, everybody just seems a little anxious.
Yeah.
Like about Vametto, you and correct me if you have notes about like exact characters who do this, but like you talk to like them about like, oh, like one person went up to do like a security check after Vametto took off, and like they had their wing clipped, and now everybody's just kind of like, I'm just a little nervous about Vametto being up there.
It seems compared to other races, there's far fewer Rito than there are others. I mean, you go like, and I agree.
And a lot of youngsters.
Maybe it's springtime, all the baby birds being born. I walked here. I saw like 3 dead baby birds on the sidewalk. It just seems to be that time of year.
Yeah.
When, like, man. Anyway.
Spring. Time of birth, but not everything survives.
Yeah, exactly.
So is the way of the world.
Time of stillbirth. I wonder if the Rito were like kind of an 11th hour addition to Breath of the Wild sometimes. They seem like the least fleshed out.
Right.
Like compared to the Zora people, right? We've seen Zora since the first game to some degree, and they started off as enemies, kind of like wild fishmen that would pop up and shoot fireballs at Link, and they only became allies in Ocarina of Time, and from there they've always been pretty, a noble race, as it were. Like they're always aligned with Hyrule Kingdom, and so they're like the Zora are, you look at Zora's domain, it's a gorgeous, extremely well thought out, the architecture is beautiful, everything is like luscious and extravagant,
and the scenario of approach where it's like you are introduced to the generational connection to the champion as soon as you enter the region, and you're touching base with him all along the way, whereas here we're like circling the town, and I love it because you're physically like winding and going up. Yeah. And this is one of the most beautiful pieces of music in the game. I'm trying to remember what instruments are doing like which parts. The strings keep doing this. Da, na, 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 na. They keep like arpeggiating up and down.
Sure,
and
sure.
you have this like gliding thing as you're ascending. It's again the environmental design and this like sort of subliminal design is beautiful, but the actual scenario of what's going on is like, I don't know, we're all a little tense. Vomit up
Sure.
there, and I don't know with this game's development specifically, but like usually like they chunk this stuff out. Like you're in charge of this
Different
part of the
teams are
story.
assigned different.
You're in charge of this part of the story, and like you said, maybe this one just was the sort of like last afterthought because they're the newest race to the Zelda canon.
Yeah, we
like,
first saw them in Wind Waker as
Yeah.
like a sentient human, like anthropomorphized bird.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. They still play an extremely important role,
Yeah.
but that's only because the game developers decided they did.
Yeah. Like none of the characters stood out to me the way like characters in other villages have. Except like I love all the kids. The kids are very cute. They're very well sort of like animated in their liveliness.
Yeah.
And that brings life to it. But like, yeah, none of their stories stood out the way like the sort of like weird racial dynamic of the older Zora against Hylians,
Right.
or the way that the Gerudo they don't let men in, and they're like like there's not a lot of that. They're just going, we're anxious about this bird.
Yeah. I feel you on that for sure. Okay, let's talk about some of the notable Rito though, because there are some that stand out. First and foremost, I'm going to mention their elder. His name's Kennelly.
Okay, I do like Kennelly.
Kennelly's cool. He's
cool.
Giant owl. He's a giant owl with a braided beard.
Yeah, I don't want to be a total hater on these folks.
So he's at the top of the Rito habitat as as you go up. He's the last one you'll find. You'll meet other Rito. You'll meet shopkeeper, you'll meet a person running an inn, you'll meet, some NPCs who have some side quests, you'll find a shrine. But Kennelly is the old, all of the elders as we've seen them so far. Well, no, that's not true at all. I was going to say that all of the elders we've met, non-humanoid races, are always the oldest and the biggest. The Gerudo being a humanoid race, it's the youngest and the smallest, which is interesting, right? You think about the Zora King, he's a gigantic whale.
Yeah.
And like girthy, like big, round. Riju, small little girl, the young, small. Kennelly, big bird, big, round, girthy.
Big, wise old owl.
Yeah. Who probably remind, people who've stuck around with the series of the owl you meet in Ocarina of Time. So when you meet with Kennelly, he sees the Sheikah slate on Link's hip, and he immediately assumes that Link is a descendant of Link. It doesn't cross his mind that this could be the same Hylian from 100 years ago. And yeah, he assumes that Link's been dead for a century. And regardless, he asks Link to help them with Va Meadow. Because yeah, like as you said, they're it seems like this tribe's only got like one warrior that got hurt trying to deal with Va Meadow. His name is Tiba, and we talk with Tiba's wife Saki, and she tells Link to go find him at the flight range, which is where she assumes you'll find him. And before we do that, though, I made sure to equip Link with the Snow Quill tunic, which
very helpful
armor set that has superior cold resistance than your quilted tunic does. It's like feather lined, so it's got better insulation, and it's super cool looking. And yeah, we head to the flight range, which is just a quick paraglide from the top of Rito Village.
And I'll hit on one character that's just kind of a fun thing to point out.
Yep.
In Rito Village is did you meet Junie?
Not not in my notes.
So Junie is a Hylian who is hanging out in the village.
Oh, cool.
And she is just really mad that her new husband brought her to Rito Village for their honeymoon.
Okay. Yeah.
And the side quest is that you have to like help get him out of the doghouse by making a baked apple dish and bringing it to Junie.
I don't think their marriage is going to work.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing that it's hanging on by as a newlywed. Not so great. I just remember approaching her in my playthrough. I was like, "Ooh, Junie, that's fun." And she's sitting on the edge of a dock, and you're like, "Oh, you seem like the cool, like bohemian gal, just hanging out in a different culture." And she's like, "I hate this place." I was like, "This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my life." Yeah, the people are a little weird and full of anxiety, but like, just look around. And she's just bitching about it.
Well, like I understand the like anxiety maybe of like going to a place that's got like a Godzilla flying around.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But when I got married, for our honeymoon, we went to San Francisco, and there was like a forest fire, and we had to like, this was pre-pandemic, and we had to like walk around with N95 masks because there was so much smoke in the air.
But if she had said that, I'd respect it. But instead, she was like, "I hate this ugly place."
Well, no, but like while there, like luckily some mute guy came up and gave me an apple dish, and I forgave my wife.
But anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to bring out, there was one little piece of local color that I was like, okay, this is She's annoying, much like other people we're about to meet, but fun.
She's the worst kind of tourist is an ungrateful one.
Yeah, right.
Next, I'm just gonna get to Tiba at the flight range.
Mm-hmm.
Tiba is
boring.
Man, you're coming with the wrong attitude toward Tiba. When I see Tiba, I see someone who's rugged, disciplined. He's stringing his bow. He's like a fucking warrior. He's like cool as a cucumber, but like he's determined. And
but like, for sure. Like I got that was what they were going for. Yeah, that exactly what you just.
He's like
described.
A stoic samurai,
right?
Where he's like he doesn't really have a plan on how to approach Vaughn Meadow because he's not able to like physically enter it without Link's Sheikah Slate.
Mm-hmm. And is he also blaming his injury for like why he can't approach fully again?
With he needs your help to get into it, and he's like, he sees Link and he's like, "What are you doing here? Like, what are you gonna do, you flightless idiot?"
Yeah. And it's that attitude, man.
Well, this is we could get into. I think it'll happen a bit more. It's a bit more close to home with Revali, but I'll call it Falco syndrome.
Was it with a Nintendo and overly confident, obnoxious birds?
Yeah. So if you've ever played the Star Fox series, Falco is one of Fox's like chief allies, but he's just his biggest critic. Yeah. And Falco is just such a stick in the mud and
smooth flying Fox. Yeah. That one was mine.
Yeah, he's
I guess I should be thankful.
Oh my god, I'm like getting angry at you thinking about being talked to like that from a Falco.
After you save his life.
I guess I should be thankful. God damn, I hate Falco. But so Link tells Tiba, he's like, "I'm gonna help you." And Tiba's like, okay. Like he seems like pretty impressed. He's like, this guy's got, moxie. And he decides it's probably best to like make sure you can handle yourself before you decide to approach a flying, Gundam. And so, there's this like archery test that he gives you. Just shoot a couple of, so the flight range, how do we describe it? It's like a big pit with a central like tower in the middle, or like outcrop of rocks, and there's glowing targets all over. And the way Link would be able to do this is to jump in with his paraglider, then shoot the arrows at the targets as he's in free fall, and then he can resume his gliding using the updraft that's constantly blowing up from the center of the flight range. I want to talk a little bit about archery just as like a gameplay mechanic.
Yeah. This is like this is a fun like way to engage with it. The bullet time and the way you you get it in the flight range. It's kind of like unlimited. Every time you reopen your paraglider, your stamina refills.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, you only get that here and then in the approach that we're about to do.
Sure, sure.
So it is fun to feel like. Okay.
Oh, you like having extra stamina?
Go look at my gameplay now. I'm bossed up on stamina.
Oh, I
now.
bet you are. I'm glad to hear that.
But like, yeah, like getting to sort of infinitely play with the bullet time. Archery thing is fun for sure.
So archery, just in like if you're just picking up the game and like you're trying out archery, you're going to notice that different bows have different power, and that just means that you'll have different range. Effective range. If you have like the most basic bow with the bokoblin bow, it's just a stick with a string on it basically. It's going to be weak. You're not going to get very far, and the arrows aren't going to go very quickly. But in other video games, by upgrading a bow, it would really, all you would be doing is just upgrade the attacking power of the bow. But the way that Breath of the Wild has it set up, you can get bows that are powerful. You can get bows that have a great distance, and you can have bows that can shoot quickly. Like the three different like factors that go into the effectiveness of one bow from the other.
And then there's also the like long range sniper phrenic bow.
The phrenic bow, you can
slower
zoom in,
and
it gives you a zoom as you're aiming, and that's got the best distance, but it's not very powerful. So there's always trade-offs, and there's also bows that have arrow multipliers, which only use one arrow but will fire 3 in its place.
Yeah, or 5 if you are a sleuthy enough hunter of Lionels.
That's right. Yeah, like the higher powered Lionels will get. Fighting Lionels to me is just like, oh, good. There's an opportunity for some really good gear here.
Yeah.
But you'll always have to break some gear to fight them. I really want to start a bonfire by shooting a flaming arrow like at a pile of sticks. Like that just seems really satisfying.
Yeah. We should cap off this series by like doing that and filming it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm super down with that.
Yeah.
I've got a bow and arrow set, so I'm ready. I've got a quiver. So yeah, Tiba, he wants you to prove that you can handle yourself in flight combat, which is the whole flight range challenge. Once you've done it, it's pretty easy, but it's fun. It is fun. I agree. The archery is, I think, my favorite combat skill throughout the game. I find myself always starting a fight with an archery, and I'm like just trying to get headshots.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Last night, I'm still playing through, but I'm pretty far ahead from where we are. I won't say what section it was, but I'll describe it as a sort of stealth section of the game where you want to maybe attack from range. And I'm just like, I was kind of running out of arrows, and I was like, I'm bossed up on bomb arrows, and basically just stood up on a ledge with like a 3 arrow spread. And I was just like napalming this camp. Like the diversity of ways that you can attack with arrows is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of fights I find are easily put on hold with the ice arrows because you'll freeze your enemy and then you can just kind of like figure out what you're going to do next. I always do that with like larger enemies. Some of the enemies you won't be effective again. A Lionel will not get frozen by an ice arrow, or like a Hinox, which if I know we mentioned the Stalfos Hinox earlier, but that's another mini boss that will come across Hyrule. That I don't believe we've mentioned them in this series yet, but they're big trolls. Big cyclopean trolls that tend to have like weapons like on a necklace around their around their neck, which in a lot of parts of the game you'll come across Hinoxes sleeping, and if your stealth is good, you can sneak up. They'll sleep with their like palms facing up, and you can sneak up onto their palm, and as they're sleeping they'll go to like scratch their chest, and they'll take Link and put him on their chest, and then you can steal the weapons off of his neck without waking him up, and then just like get the hell out of there. If you don't, I feel like
you have mentioned this, but not the part that you could just like be picked up by his hand.
Yeah, it's super cool. It is super cool.
Good. There was one other like note about like the diversity of archery battle is like you can learn how to take camps where you can take out stronger enemies sort of with like a one-hit KO. If it's like, oh, there's a ice enemy that's pretty strong, you can hit it with a fire arrow, or vice versa. And then like, okay, I've gotten rid of the heavier, dutier guys, and now I can go and clear them out with melee. Which is another, just nice little perk of arrows and how you can use them.
If you're going into an icy region, it's great to have fire arrows as a backup. Going into a fiery region, maybe bring some ice arrows. Lightning is the one thing where it's like one of the enemies that we come across called Wizrobes, which are interesting enemies. And a fire arrow will defeat an ice Wizrobe immediately. Ice arrow, fire immediately. Yeah. But the lightning one is he doesn't have that quick solution to him, which makes him one of the more difficult ones if you're not, ready to deal with a bunch of electrical attacks. Mm-hmm. My favorite part about the arrow, like archery in general, is with lower level bows having to compensate for their trajectory. And so you're going to aim way higher than what you're aiming at. And it's just like, it's physics. It's a great way to understand the basics of trajectory and how to compensate. It's very intuitive and fun to pick up and play around with.
Yeah. And before we go to like the approach to Va Meadow, I know we're not like covering the what happens in the memories quite yet.
Right. We're going to be covering that in a later episode. We have our
introduction to
Revali.
Ravioli. Gosh darn ravioli.
Yeah, Revali is the champion from 100 years past who's now at the helm of Va Meadow as a trapped ghost.
Yeah. So we're introduced to him, and like I said, we're not going to go into detail of it, but I just came out of that just like, you're so deeply unlikable.
Yeah. I think I would describe the chemistry between Revali and Link as like antagonistically romantic, where like I think Revali is like deeply jealous of Link as like a champion, and there is a little bit of like, he's like, I bet you can't do as many push-ups as me. I bet you can't kiss as good as me.
Yeah. It's kind of like, oh gosh, what's his name? It's like, he reminds me a little bit of like Boromir in Lord of the Rings, who's just like, why this little guy and why not me? But Boromir gets a redemption arc. Whereas Revali through to the end is just like, I could have done better.
Yeah.
And it's like, then prove it.
Yeah, well, maybe don't die 100 years ago.
You got murked by this thing, and as we're about to explain, we're about to take it down.
Yeah. Revali does recognize, as we'll get into it more in a different episode, but the only reason Revali sees Link as an equal is because Link wields the Master Sword.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. He's like, if you don't have that, you're nothing, basically, is how Revali sees it. Whereas Revali, I mean, in a lot of cases, he is probably the most competent warrior. An aerial assault with a flurry of arrows is just like, how do you do that in this day and age, right?
Yeah. And that also, I mean, that reckons back to a character like Boromir, and I don't know what the counter, like that trope would be, because it goes all the way back to like King Arthur's, like, you're just the guy who was able to pull the sword.
That would be, well, in King Arthur, that'd be Lancelot, where Lancelot is like the most, he's the greatest warrior of his time. And the only reason people talk about King Arthur is because he wielded Excalibur.
Yeah.
And Lancelot, at least in the John Boorman Excalibur film, Lancelot romances Guinevere, King Arthur's queen, and creates this weird love triangle. And everyone just go watch Excalibur. It is such a good movie.
I can respect that trope. You're building that character archetype, but it's just like, man, the other two are so likable, like they're so endearing. But I'm like, just give me one redeemable thing about Revali, and I keep waiting for it, and it never comes.
Yeah. Well, we only see him talking smack.
Yeah,
like they've chosen to just share memories of Revali being revolting. Shucks.
All
That's
right.
that's enough
I
of that.
just had to bitch about for a minute. Now we can approach Bob.
Yeah. Well, so Link completes the test that Tiba asks him to hit the targets. Tiba is like earnestly impressed, and he insists that they approach Von Meadow at once, and gives Link the Falcon bow. This is one of those bows that this is actually a really good bow at this point. It's got a pretty high damage. It's quick, and it's got really good distance range, and that's going to be the bow that you'll want to use for the boss fight. As at least that's what I wanted to use. It was the best bow I had at that point. That was not like a multiplier or at that point I think I only had like knight's bows and maybe a Lionel bow.
Are you talking about for the actual boss in Von Meadow, or like this part where you approach it?
The part where you approach it, I believe it was called a Sparrow's bow, which is a way.
That part I was just kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, so let's go into
It's like
the approach for Von Meadow.
Unfailable, pretty much.
The approach to Von Meadow is like you want to hit Von Meadow's cannons. It's got 4 of cannons. Visually this is a wonderful segment in the game, where Tiba kind of drops Link off like high up in the sky, higher than we've ever been at this point. And Von Meadow, gigantic bird plane flying around, and it just kind of becomes your central point of reference while you're floating around. And you'll paraglide, and there's 4 cannons that fire guardian lasers. And what Tiba does during this point is distract the cannons so that Link can fire some bomb arrows at the cannons, which are also controlling a force field around Von Meadow. It's a very simple fight. Like you can just updraft, hit with the paraglider, start drop down, go into bullet time, hit it with 2 bomb arrows, boom, that's 1 cannon. And you just do it 4 times. The best part though is just the span of Hyrule that you see around, and it's just the wonderful sweeping panorama of the entire map, and it's really impressive looking.
Yeah, I noted that in my playthrough that this portion, and when you're on Von Meadow, it's not sort of a generic blurred texture of like, there's some land back there. It's like, oh no, the actual landmarks are still around. And all the Divine Beasts do this pretty well if you really want to pay attention. And yeah, it is very like gorgeous in terms of, and like this sort of like the freedom of flight. But like it's not quite, well, there's literally no challenge to it.
No,
so it's like
so
once
simple.
you kind of get up there, you look around like, oh, this is cool. This is one of those moments where I was like, okay, where's the I get it button?
Yeah. I agree with you in that one. There's a fun part though where Tiba asks Link, "Too scared to talk?" As they're going through with it.
That is nice. Yeah,
making mention of the fact that Link is a mute.
Yeah.
They go into some explanation as to why. It's not that he's like taking a vow of silence, because at points they imply that Link is talking, but we don't hear him say anything to people, where he'll start doing like kind of a talk animation to like fill in the gist to whoever he's talking to. But it seems like he's mostly just like stoic samurai who doesn't, like, he's almost taking a vow of silence, like to be like focused on the mission at hand. Yeah, this is where the snow quill tunic comes handy because it's extremely cold up in the atmosphere, and or you could just eat a bunch of spicy pepper dishes.
Yeah.
And
but I believe it's too cold to wear normal clothes the entire time you're in this portion flying around, and when you're on Von Meadow. Because I ran into this because I wanted to put on
better armor.
I wanted to put on my like barbarian armor.
To
get
take
the
down
the boss
boost
faster at the end. And I was like, oh, it's too cold. And I was like, well, I got enough hearts. I'm just gonna risk it.
Yeah, and it worked for you.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But we'll get to that in a minute.
See, my thing is that like I haven't prioritized collecting all the beneficial armor. I just get the things that are like game essential at this point, and I tend to forget that I'm like wearing it until the environment's like, hey, you should probably do something.
Until you get blasted by one hit and go, where did all those hearts go?
Hey, I've only got I think I have 5 hearts at this point. So Von Meadow you shoot the 4 cannons, and then Tiba gets hurt in the mix, and so he has to leave while you take on Von Meadow on your own. So
yeah, he quote unquote gets hurt.
I got hurt. I got hurt. And yeah, as soon as you enter Von Meadow, Revali's ghost voice, he acknowledges Link's arrival. He says, "Making me wait 100 years is indulgent." It's just like, dude,
It's
here
not
to help.
always about you, Revali.
Exactly. Okay. This is the one divine beast that I really wish you could control, like, after you've conquered it. Like, I basically once, like, okay, so you're in this gigantic airplane. I want Sid's High Wind.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it'd be so dope if this could be your airship.
Yes, it would be so cool. It has no real practical purpose except it's cool. It's cool to look down at Hyrule and be like, I'm flying, I'm doing all this stuff, and like the game would be totally different if you could just have this jet that goes around. Like
I was saying, it could be cool. I'm sort of like remapping the design of this game real quick. Would be you're forced to Von Meadow first, and you can't fast travel between shrines. You have to use Von Meadow as your airship.
That would be great
for the rest of the game, so that it forces you to do something that people, I think, complain about the game a little bit, is that they're like, you don't travel the environment as much as you want to because you're like, it just would take way too long. I'm just going to fast travel.
Sure.
But if you're in an airship that just goes like way faster, quite literally as the crow flies, than a horse, and without the encumbrance of a horse where it's like, I ran into a foot tall bush, I have to do this 3-second backup animation. I don't know. That could be kind of fun.
It would be amazing to be able to just airdrop into spaces and to have that.
Yeah, and then you parachute in.
Exactly.
And it just like will come swoop you up later, like you can with the bird ocarina in like Link to the Past or something.
Yeah, I would.
That'd be sick.
I would love to. You know what? We were talking about this earlier. I'd love to play a mod where I can do that.
Yeah. And like there are assets of a giant Von Meadow you can control from Age of Calamity. For what it's worth.
Snap! That's cool. I learned recently that game is not canon.
Oh well, forget anything I said about that in the course of this podcast.
I think the only thing that would have been questionable was we were trying to figure out how Master Koga fits in because he's a playable character in Age of Calamity. Whereas, like, I mean, if they wanted to just really simplify, it'd be like, yeah, that was his son. Like every Master Koga is a fat beer belly guy.
He's a fat piece of shit.
Maybe he's like I don't know. Maybe he's a good cook or something.
Yeah. Does he time travel? Because the 4 like champion descendants time travel into the game.
Oh.
Or did you not read that far? I don't remember.
I literally was on like a Zelda wiki fan page, and at the very top, and they also said this about the cartoon series that we've been covering. It just says non-canon information ahead.
Oh, got it. Well, correct us the story of Age of Calamity in the comments.
Yeah, go ahead, or give us an email, campvideogames@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Tell us everything you know about the Legend of Zelda's canonical
I'm not replaying
history.
Age of Calamity. I might, I didn't play the DLC. Maybe I'll jump in and play that if I'm hankering in the next week before Tears of the Kingdom comes out.
Yeah. Man, I might have to borrow that from you at some point too. Did you download it, or do you have a?
I only do downloads.
Oh, I'm more of a physical media kind of guy.
If back to the beginning of this episode, physical media is the way to go. But I'm a man of convenience. I don't like having stuff. Like, around my house, the only like stuff I have are records and books.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sold off all my physical media games to pay a bunch of medical bills at one point.
Oh, you gave me your NES copy of Mega Man, which is really nice.
The original? You have the original? I'm glad. Okay, that makes me feel better that it's like it's in the family.
Yeah. It was a wedding gift. That you
got
gave.
that.
That was the best wedding gift I got. Too.
That's great. That's when I was selling all my games off. I got that game as a birthday present, I think, after I had played other Mega Man cartridge-based games.
Yeah.
Maybe I should save this for another series. Real quick, just when you see the cover art of the original Mega Man and you played the others, but you're a kid, you go, what the fuck is this piece of shit you gave me?
Right, because he's not an anime character. He's like a straight. He looks like a 70s like exploitation. Like
yeah, no. In retrospect, it's
poster.
beautiful. It's amazing. It's weird and funky, but like as a kid, you're like, this sucks, man.
Yeah, it is strange. Yeah, we'll save that maybe for
Okay, whatever.
another
Leave it in. Well, I'll bring it up again.
I want to address a huge quality of life improvement that Breath of the Wild offers over pretty much every other Zelda game. And that's when you're down to like one heart.
Oh god, yeah.
Okay. And you know exactly where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Like in the early games, there's a like this tone, the tone of the alarm, the low health alarm. It's so grating. Like my wife has been like, "Can you play something else?" Like, or, no, one time she was like,
my family would do the same thing when I was a kid.
My wife was like, "You need to get better at this game, or you need to turn the volume off." And what Breath of the Wild has done is just make it so much less grating. It's just more of like a beep 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 beep.
Yeah,
beep beep. It's so soft.
and they recuperate that in the visual that
Link shows signs of fatigue.
He'll show signs of fatigue, and he has this red blink.
Yeah, like bosses when you're getting close to beating them in early video games.
They do a lot of good visual telegraphing of it to make up for the fact that it's not going blah blah.
Yeah, I just had to make mention of that because that is like, thank you, Nintendo. Thank you. Like you might save my marriage with this. Okay, so entering Vob Meadow, you're in this big flying cool robot bird. We've tackled a couple divine beasts at this point, so it's nothing really that new. It's just different approaches to progressing through unlocking terminals.
Was by far the easiest.
I'd agree with that.
And I wonder how much of it is an aspect of it has the least variables of how you can manipulate it. It's like it's either tilted or not.
Right, right.
Is all you can do.
Yeah, you can tilt Vob Meadow from like wing to wing, and that creates some really cool opportunities to just fly across the room if you tilt it at the right time and you're at the right spot. So like if you go to one wing tip and you tilt it so it's at the top, then you can really easily just glide down to the other side, and it it rewards you for that type of thinking with a couple of treasure chests that are out of reach spaces that wouldn't be more otherwise accessible. And yeah, you know, the Divine Beast formula is first you find the map console, and that'll unlock the 3D map of the mech. And then it's a matter of finding terminals, which then allow you to access the central control unit. And so it's really just like, if you're looking at the map, there's going to be a couple of glowing signals that show you where to go. And then it's just a matter of figuring out how to manipulate the Divine Beast to get there. So you're going to use some magnesis, you're going to use some stasis. In my case, I use some stasis. And otherwise, you'll just be tilting it to suit your needs.
Yeah, and I think another point of ease with this is it's a relatively flat plane. It's
unlike
it feels
other
a lot
ones,
more two-dimensional, just sort of like
you're going from wing to wing, and
the
not
left
the
end
entire
or the right
top.
end of the wings.
Yeah, totally.
Not a lot of depth to it.
A very simple level compared to other ones that we've tackled so far.
And I'm not hating on it.
Oh,
in
no,
any
no.
way. I'm like, I had fun with it.
It's very satisfying.
Yeah.
There's one aspect that I enjoyed is that now when you were playing through, there's going to be some like ski lifts that are there. Did you end up riding those?
Yeah, I had actually a bit of a jump scare on the ski lift where you ride a ski lift into one of the terminals at the end of a wing.
Yeah.
And I've done it a couple times because I've played it a couple times. And I wasn't anticipating like there's a piece of malice at the end, and I think like I misgauged my arrow shot to clear it out. And so I was like, oh god! And I thought it was gonna like toss me off and like smack me against the malice and throw me out. I was like, nah, it just kind of like let me jump through it. But I still had a bit of like a jump scare when I hit it.
I tried and I succeeded in not using those ski lifts in the playthrough
like
of
just
this.
gliding.
Yeah, and it's I think like you see these things and you're like, oh, I guess I need to find a way to use that. Where that would imply that like the Divine Beast was designed for for anybody to be able to access it, not just the Rito. That's there for the benefit of Hylians or for Zora or Gorons, people, flightless species.
Yeah.
But
it's just funny because in my live streaming, this is Va Meadows when I first brought up like the designs of the divine beasts, feeling like they're not really for many, like so many of the elements of them don't seem for practical use. But that's a good one to point out.
yeah. And if you want to keep up with Josh's live streaming, you can follow him on YouTube at Carl's Manager.
Yeah. It's the Carl's Manager Patreon is where the streams live. It's only $1. Just $1 to hang out with me. I like to put on a nice chill game stream before bed, and that's the vibe that I bring to them.
I'd buy that for $1. The whole of Va Meadow is pretty simple. There's I think my favorite part of it is you use the wind coming in through windows to activate these like fans that then allow you to get through a gate. But then it's not totally telegraphed that you're supposed to jump out of one of these windows, and then you're in kind of free flight alongside Va Meadow, and then you go in through another window. And that gave me some of that like fear of heights tingle in my belly. You know what I'm talking about?
I had I think it was the same moment that I noted as I was playing. I was like, this is kind of embarrassing because I am physically tilting my head to try to like look around the angle I'm trying to like float to, as if that will physically give me a better camera angle than I can get. So it does establish some good spatial, I don't know what you would call that, like reality, like verisimilitude. I don't know. Like you feel in the space a little bit.
Have you ever done any virtual reality?
I just did the I've done like virtual reality games. Like I played some Beat Saber, which is cool, but I did the Van Gogh, what's it called? It's like this traveling exhibit that's in Cincinnati right now.
The Van Gogh experience.
It's I'm gonna go ahead and say it's bullshit.
Yeah.
There's one room where they like all 360 degrees, they do projection mapping. Some of it's okay. But there's a VR experience at the end. And it's so funny because like it's a full, like it's if you've ever played a video game past 2004, like you go in it and you're like, this fucking sucks. This is dog shit. Because the idea is they want to put you in a 360 degree experience of the space Van Gogh would have kind of been in when he painted an actual location. So what they do is they sort of like, you're like in a wagon cart ride to these different spaces, and then like you'll look out over this like over the ridge of like where Starry Night was, and then the painting will form over it. But again, if you're a gamer, you're looking around and you're like, every other asset aside from the painting was just bottom dollar, like Korean animation studio dog shit. Oh. It's so funny. It's like the you won't know the reference, but fans will. The entire design of everything around the actual Van Gogh paintings is that door from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Just the listeners will know what I'm talking about. Okay. It's like this door in Final Fantasy VII Remake that like they just like, they did like a 2002 era, amount of like sort of like pixel, what am I thinking of? Like resolution on. Yeah. And it just does not fit in the rest of the game. That's what like the whole Van Gogh experience is. It's like playing like a Elder Scrolls game like pre Skyrim. Yeah. It's so funny.
I played Daggerfall, the first open world one. I mean, I know that. Okay, so Elder Scrolls started with Arena, and then it went to Daggerfall, and then I believe it was Ravenloft. But Daggerfall is free to download through Bethesda's website. Dope. And if your main experience with the Elder Scrolls is like Skyrim, it's a huge gap between Daggerfall and Skyrim in terms of like playability for a lot of people. It's one of those games where it's like, in order to swing your sword, you have to like click and drag the direction you want your sword to swing. It's a little clunky, but at the height of the pandemic when I had nothing to do, I got really into it, and it is fun. I think it was, for a while it was the largest video game map, like ever. It was like miles and miles and miles and miles and miles.
But it was so funny because my mom was so stoked on this whole thing.
Oh,
like,
sure.
I don't like to yuck people's yum, but I was just like, honestly, like I'd rather just look around in Breath of the Wild. Like that's a more beautiful experience than this dog shit that was hacked together again by like people just trying to make a buck off of Van Gogh's legacy.
That's exactly why it wasn't that good, because they have no incentive for it to be better than it has to be, which is going to be bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. Exactly.
So if you're listening, Vincent Van Gogh's Ghost, talk with your ghost lawyers and make sure that your name is not being sullied. Yeah. Van Gogh, friend of the show. So after we defeat Vincent Van Gogh's ghost, we then approach Windblight Ganon. So, this is a boss fight on the back of Va Meadow. So you've got a plane where its wings are making a big long platform that Link can run all the way across. And you've got just like open air all around you. So there are some higher stakes in that you could fall off. I didn't, but
yeah. I guess walk me through your tactic, because I feel like I cheesed this pretty hard. I don't know what like the actual strategy is, because I know there are wind. I don't know what you want to call them. Updrafts. Seems like you're supposed to ride. I don't think I ever did that. I don't know. What was Walk me through.
So when you interact with the main control unit, which is the final task to complete Divine Beast before fighting Windblight Ganon, you interface with it with your Sheikah Slate, and immediately Windblight Ganon comes bursting out of the technology. And this one's got like a Buster Cannon on its arm. Talking about Mega Man before, he's got an arm cannon, and to fight him, I would just like updraft, hit him in the and go into arrow, which would then slow everything down. I'd hit him in the head with a couple of arrows, he'd fall to the ground. I'd swing my sword at him, and then he like goes into a second phase where he's got these like homing lasers that like follow him around.
Yeah, and
it's really, this is like, it was an easy Divine Beast to navigate, and this is an easy boss to defeat. Yeah. Like I would hit him in the head, cheese him with the sword, and that was it. It was very simple.
For my Xenogears heads out there, they're like Ellie's Aerods that she has for her gear.
In a lot of
obviously
in a lot of shooters, if you get power ups, like shooters Gradius.
I played like Gradius 3 recently. Good.
The one I played the most as a kid was Life Force, which was in the same line where you're a spaceship going left to right, and I think those games are also referred to as bullet hells. Your power-ups would be like these little pods that float alongside your ship. That's what Windblight Ganon gets, which is, I don't know if that's like a reference to those types of games. Like Gradius or Life Force or there was a great one that I used to play.
Was it Phalanx, the one with the banjo guy on the cover?
I know what you're talking about. Super Nintendo. That was a really good cover.
And a good game.
I never played that one actually.
It's pretty good. So it sounded like you did about the same thing I did, but I just bing, 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 3 arrows to the eyeball, stuns him, and I didn't bother with the updrafts. Is really the only difference. And then I had my barbarian armor, so I took a 2-handed weapon.
Yeah.
Swing, spin. Now he's at 50%. Repeat when he's got his Aerods out, and done.
Yep, that's the only reason I used the updraft was to slow down time, so I could definitely get really easy.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's what it's there for, to encourage you to keep using this technique you've been tutorializing on throughout this section of the game.
The boss, so all of the blights of Ganon's blights that are like corruptions of the champion's abilities to some degree that on their corresponding Divine Beast. This one floats around as a blue orb, which is like Sheikah Tech. It just made me think that like without the Sheikah Tech, Ganon would not have been able to create these things. It's it's just the kind of the catch-22, where technology is cause and the solution to a lot of these problems. And yeah, by like you have a good thing, technology can be used for good, but it can also be used for evil, right? Like what? Like the Nobel Peace Prize, right? The inventor of dynamite is Nobel.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really important tool, but it then changed warfare. Kind of the same approach is being had here, where it's like, this is all corrupted Sheikah tech that is the cause of the major problems that Hyrule's facing right now.
Oppenheimer's splitting and smashing atoms.
Oh, I am the destroyer of worlds. I am become whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that. And then.
It's just great. Revali, he does not like that he's being avenged by Link. It just bothers him. He's like, which I love.
That's
it's
what
like
I was getting to.
Such a sweet victory to be like, you stupid bird. I've eaten so many chicken legs in this game playthrough too.
Oh my god, he drives me insane. He's just so deeply unlikable that I was just like, well, you're welcome. And then the real kicker.
Excuse me, Revali.
And then the kicker. Hold on.
Excuse me, princess.
Thank you.
Well, and then the real kicker is this guy's just been a dick to you for the past however long it's took you. An hour, 2-3 hours, depending on, whatever. And then he's like, oh, by the way, here's the most useful tool you're going to get in this mountain climbing simulator of a game.
Yeah. Revali's Gale is...
like, God damn it, you son of a bitch.
But you know what? He's a homie because he does give you that amazing tool.
Right.
So Revali's Gale is... it creates your own updraft that Link can then paraglide straight up and then have a lot of distance to be able to cover as a result. It makes travel so much more like interesting. You're not just running from point A to point B, you're flying and then finding maybe a higher spot. And then you can use it, I believe, 3 times in succession. And then it's got a pretty quick compared to other champions.
It's pretty overpowered.
I think it's every 6 minutes you're going to get a recharge on it. So you can't just spam it and just keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. But it really, really increases your traveling efficiency. So only because of that, I like Revali.
Yeah.
You
redeemed yourself enough, you son of a bird.
All this talk of Falco, I have to give a huge shout out to a series that I just came across recently called Fox in Space, which I don't think I've talked to you about this, have I?
Off-brand Star Fox?
It's like fan-made Star Fox, like film noir.
Nice.
And it is so well done. It's an animated YouTube series. The first episode premiered 8 years ago. The second episode only recently premiered, and it's incredibly sophisticated storytelling. It treats the Star Fox like universe with such like delicate sensitivity, and it's incredibly well done. I'm like very interested to talk with the creator of this series just to get like to talk to somebody who has dedicated so much time to interpreting a very simple Nintendo property. It's such an effective, really satisfying way,
and to give us an excuse to talk about Star Fox 64.
Woo! Exactly. I'm really trying to talk about some Star Fox. I love that series. I've played Star Fox 64 the most for sure, but I've given everything a chance and keep going back to Star Fox 64.
Yeah, it's
definitely the best,
cream of the crop.
the best in my opinion. But yeah, serious recommendation. And Josh, I would love to talk with you about this sometime. Fox in Space, really good series on YouTube. If you just search for that, I bet you'll find it. Revali, I would describe him as capable but vain. He's a good warrior. He's the best the Rito has to offer at that time. But yeah, just a very vain, conceited, self-centered, aggressively critical, horrible teammate. He's a horrible teammate.
Yeah. Not somebody you want on your team if you don't have to have him.
Yeah. I think it's like when you apply for jobs, like a lot of the time people just hire people they want to hang out with more than people that they think will bring something to the team, like professionally. At least that's my experience because I have very little skill, but I'm, I try to be charismatic. Where I've gotten jobs where I'm like, are you sure? Okay. Yeah. Revali is he would have some like. He'd probably have some problems with HR.
Not getting invited back to many second interviews.
Yeah. Or if he gets hired, like HR is going to know about Revali.
Yeah,
just being
it got another Revali write up.
After you defeat Windblight Ganon, you get Revali's Gale, super dope. Now you can fly, Peter Pan, and Vomito lands atop the big golf ball tee that we were describing earlier, the center of Rito Village, and it's like perching there. And after Link leaves Vomito, Revali does kind of admit that Link's the shit, but he waits until Link isn't there to hear it, which that's really what it is. Where it's like I think the reason Revali is so hard on Link is because he is jealous. Like he does see that this is like Revali's living his life like he's the main character, but he's an NPC.
Yeah,
and
quite literally.
Yeah. And he has to he's like, wow, yeah, but damn, that kid really did do what I couldn't, and that's just got to eat him up,
Yeah.
He wants to be the very best, like no one ever was.
Yeah, and it's like if you can't admit it to yourself at that point, then we've got even deeper problems, Revali. Yeah. So at least you can admit this much.
Yeah. So Link returns back to Rito Village, and there you'll find Tiba. He's on the mend. His wife Saki has given him some first aid, and he's just working his way back to being at his 100%. But I think Tiba is a much more tempered. It's a great you see the contrast in he's the same. He's built of the same stuff as Revali, but he doesn't have that chip on his shoulder.
Yeah,
it's
like Revali's failure has rubbed a bit of the chip off.
Ooh, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Then you go and you talk with Cannoli, the big old owl.
Cannoli, ravioli, sake.
I'm hungry. Tiba.
I don't know.
Teabag.
Yeah.
He gives you the Great Eagle Bow, which super fast, and it shoots 3 arrows at a time. It's one of the best bows that you can get. It's at this point in the game, if you're not just going after all of the hard to reach, breadcrumbs that lead you to like the best weapons that are ever possible. But yeah, Great Eagle Bow is your reward for this one. So now we've gotten the Light Scale Trident, we've gotten the Scimitar of the Seven, and the Great Eagle Bow, the kind of the heirloom weapons of those tribes. So that's Vomito. And the Rito people, any closing thoughts on them?
They I don't know. I guess they chill out a little bit, and then there's a few like quest lines you can do with the kids.
There's a missing kid. You can go find her.
There's like one reveals a shrine where you got to collect the kids for like singing practice.
That's right.
It's just I don't know. I don't dislike the Rito like sort of cultural design and people. I just felt like scenario wise, it just wasn't fleshed out as well as the others.
Yeah, I'd say our discussion is more interesting than what they did.
Right.
Campers, thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Next time we're going to go to Death Mountain. We're gonna meet our old rock eater buddies,
and we're gonna drop a cat in the fire as punishment.
Oh, buddy. She just demanded a sacrifice, and it just had to be your laptop. Yeah, that sucks. That sucks, man.
You gotta laugh in life. It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, campers, join us next time. We're gonna go to some Fire in the Mountain. Run, boy, run. Devils in the House of the Rising Sun.
Yeah. Might be a little bit of delay between now and when we record that until we can get our second screen back up and running.
There will not be a delay in our release, though, since we're recording this all in nice big
bunches. We should have plenty of leeway. I'm hoping this I don't need to bug them with it. I'll deal.
Folks, if you want to hang out, join us over at Instagram at Camp Video Games. And if you have anything you'd like to say about, maybe some series that you'd like to recommend for future coverage, we like to cover TV adaptations. We like to cover film adaptations, and I'm going to start going in on novelizations as a side gig here at Camp Video Games. Give us some recommendations. We got a lot down the pipe, and really excited to just see what they thought they could sell just by slapping a video game property on into other mediums. But yeah, give us an email, campvideogames@gmail.com.
Oh, also hitting that Patreon, we, as you heard, we might have a hefty repair bill on our hands right now. So you can check out that link in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. Where you can also get some full episode commentary, and down the pipeline, we're going to have some playthrough and more and more as we develop this burgeoning, groundbreaking podcast series. So, campers, thanks for hanging out. That's all for today.
Peace out, y'all. Oh, God, I got to figure out how to stop it. Okay.
If you'd like to write to us, send a message to campvideogames@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at campvideogames. If you want to become a real happy camper, you can support Camp Video Games on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll be granted access to even more discussions about movie-based video games, game-based movies, full-length commentaries, playthroughs, and more. Whether you sign up or not, we're glad to have you here at Camp Video Games.